Hello and welcome back to the channel with the very consistent upload schedule. As you may already know, a bunch of early builds for Skylanders Giants were discovered, with a lot of crazy differences between them all. The one which I find the most interesting is the March 2012 build, which contains several unused playable characters, which can be loaded in by replacing other Skylanders. The main focus of this video is this one, who has the file name Rhino. In the Magic Moment and the Stats menu, he appears as the scrapped Red Dragon. He has the lowest health in the entire series, with a whopping 100 health at level 1, which increases to a maximum of 200 at level 10. His armor and critical hit both start at 0, his elemental power starts at 25, and his speed is actually so far in the negatives that the bar stretches backwards past the character model. During actual gameplay, Rhino appears as a Drow Goliath with a cannon on his back. He has the life element, and he has 3 fully functional attacks. His primary has him punch the ground for a melee attack. This can also be held to create a fissure in the ground. Both the punch and the fissure deal 10 damage and can briefly stun enemies. Next up, his secondary is a dash attack, which helps him go from being the slowest character in the game to one of the fastest. It lasts seemingly forever as long as you hold the button down, and it deals 15 damage each time you run into an enemy. It also has a certain extra ability, but we'll get back to that later. Finally, when you hold down the tertiary attack, a target appears which you can aim with the control stick. Releasing the tertiary attack will launch a cannonball towards the target. Each cannonball explosion deals 20 damage and has no extra effects. All around, he's certainly a unique character. But wait a minute, this video is supposed to be about Spyro's adventure. Why are we talking about a scrap Giants character? Well, surprisingly, the character files from the March 2012 build can be copy-pasted directly into Spyro's adventure, and about half of them will actually load in. Well, sort of. These are still different games after all, so as you can see, the transfer isn't exactly flawless. Almost all Giants newcomers will get stuck loading in the Magic Moment, so unfortunately, playing as these characters in Spyro's adventure is still just a dream. Whenever someone does load in, even if they were already in Spyro's adventure, their model in the Magic Moment will have no lighting, and the in-game model will be seemingly missing, leaving any hats or accessories attached to their base position. Except Stump Smash, he's just fine for some reason. Any particles will either not exist at all, or exist a bit too much, and most attacks will either be missing their damage indicators, or will do this. The health values also get really messed up. At level 1, Trigger Happy has 60, Stump Smash has 4,096, and all other Spyro's Adventure characters either have 15 or 2,179,075. And no, that's not just a visual thing, they can actually take that full 2 million's worth of damage. I was going to make a joke here about how it would be an extremely unfair matchup in battle mode, but apparently they're all just unkillable zombies in there somehow. There's also some weird glitch with the movement where characters get stuck on random invisible walls. For example, I'm only holding up in this clip, but Eyebrow keeps getting pushed off to the side. On the flip side, when you can avoid these walls, some characters can go zooming around way faster than usual, and then some of them can't move at all. Finally, one of the most inconvenient parts of this. Half of the characters effectively leave behind a bomb in the Magic Moment. After using them, trying to scan anyone else in will once again... That is why this video isn't about Eyebrow. So yeah, with all of these problems, it's kind of hard to find someone who could be considered actually playable. But as it turns out, Rhino is the one character who has his normal amount of health, doesn't run into random invisible walls, and can actually attack without any weird bugs or crashes. So after killing Legendary Spyro and replacing him with Rhino, we can scan him in and he works perfectly fine. Okay, he may be missing his entire body aside from the cannon, but gameplay-wise, he's almost entirely functional. And most importantly, he can bully Quigley. Now that we've finished going over the basics of Rhino, along with the general strangeness of copying over the characters, here are the 2 very basic rules I decided to set for this challenge. Number 1, Rhino is the only Skylander we can use. If we get stuck and need to scan someone else in to make progress, it'll be considered a failure, but we will keep going with the other chapters just to see how much he can do on his own. Number 2, if we die, we have to use the reset chapter option. This one's self-explanatory. With those 2 rules set, we can start a new game and begin the challenge. The game opens with Shattered Island, where it is currently slightly windier than usual. Eon tells us to place our Skylander on the portal, so we scan Rhino in and we can start our adventure. never mind, the game's already having issues. If we attempt to skip the cutscene here, it freezes entirely, save for the music. Well, that's it, playthrough over. You can't beat Spyro's Adventure with only Rhino. See you next time! Nah, just kidding, getting around this is pretty easy. All you have to do is kill Eon. Or just skip his dialogue, that works too. Somehow, skipping Eon's line makes Hugo notice us, and after he talks a bit more, we can start our adventure. Or still not. Now, I'm going to try to explain what's happening here, although it is mostly just educated guesses. Since accessories show up as usual and are still animated, I'm assuming that the character model is still there, but set to scale 0. It's possible that the spawn point here is slightly underground, where a normal Skylander is tall enough to touch the ground above it and snap to that instead. But since Rhino is scale 0, he's not tall enough to do that and ends up falling through the world. Obviously there's no ground under the ground, so it tries to respawn him, but since that's still underground, he gets stuck in a loop. And no amount of mashing buttons is able to help get out of this. Luckily, multiplayer is here to help us out. If we summon another Rhino with player 2, they're able to land with no issues. From there, I just had to leave the game and rejoin as player 1, and they also successfully touched down on solid ground. Now, after all of that, we can finally, truly start our adventure. But right after, we find another obstacle. Snuggles and Eon both tell us to use the cannon, but Rhino's cannon doesn't actually work in Spyro's Adventure. Unfortunately, there isn't any other cannon anywhere around here, so we don't have anything to destroy the debris with. Guess we have no other choice than to run over it because his dash is simply that good. With the power of his dash, we could save the Mabu, but we could also just not do that. Well, blobbers blabbers, you might notice that the lighting on the turtle is freaking out a bit. That happens to various objects and characters whenever Rhino is on screen during a cutscene. No idea why it happens, but I might as well point it out because you'll be seeing it quite a bit throughout this. We find out that these Mabu can't figure out how to get through this reasonably sized gap and then ignore the bounce pads to run up these cliffs just because we can.
I'll be on the safe side, thank you. It sure beats being on the choppy side. Which is where you are?
Blobbers, what are you talking about? I'm on your side of the gate. Since the cutscene informing us that Blobbers is a chompy ends before his elemental explanation does, we can ignore him and continue on as he talks. Sadly, we do have to open this gate to beat the chapter, so there's no way to avoid rescuing Quigley. We do get to confuse the camera during the ending due to the multiple cutscenes though. Yum, ground. With the first chapter completed, we arrive at the ruins, the hub world for the game. I think it's time to buy an upgrade. Unfortunately, the game doesn't think that, and so due to a lack of better options, we set off to perilous pastures. Thankfully, unlike Shattered Island, we don't get stuck in a spawn loop at the start. Oh, hey, a locked gate. You know what we do with those, right? That's right, we go under them. Since Rhino is life element, we can take the secret path and then bypass the final gate to finish the chapter super quickly. We run into some shrubs for a while, and it's time for Sky Schooner Dogs. Sky Schooner starts with the spawn loop again. Strangely, player 2 also spawned underground, but in doing so, they pushed player 1 upwards, which allowed them to land normally. So this time, we didn't even need to leave and rejoin with player 1. Anyways, now that that's dealt with, we can take the teleporter. And right after the first teleporter, there's another locked gate. At this point, we all know what to do with these. We go around them. And then, since turrets are boring, we can go through the hole in the middle of the next gate. After ignoring more various guys and running through some ramps, we grab our favorite flavor of air and complete the chapter. Hi, editing me here, you can also skip the cutscene with Persephone, and that stops the airship from showing up, which looks pretty funny. Anyways, back at the ruins, we're told to talk to Persephone, so we go to the beach instead. There's once again nothing to do here though, so we go back to talk to her and then fly off to the stormy stronghold. Since we're continuing to run really quickly and ignoring all the barriers, we can see the enemies spawn directly in front of us and sometimes even on us. Oh no, we're cornered. Whatever will we do? So yeah, we've evolved from running over gates to running over air to land on more air. The air source recognizes our mastery of the skies after getting lost for a while, and weirdly allows us to collect it without any fight beforehand. We free Gurglefin, who was clearly not here before, and he tells us how much he hates fish puns before we set sail to Oil Spill Island, where he immediately makes a fish pun. Oil Spill has a lot of gates. More gates means more stuff we can ignore, so we're able to reach the cages at the back without completing any laser puzzles. Skipping those stops almost all of the enemies from spawning, so now there's just this one guy guarding the entire second half of the chapter. And we are actually him. Unfortunately, it's not all smooth sailing, as the teleporter places us in another spawn loop. I brought player 2 in as usual, but decided to keep player 1 in the game just in case teleporting to the final section fixed it. It did not. One bomb later, oil spill is complete. Watching the NPCs talk to a random floating cannon will never not be funny. Back at the ruins, we take the oil to the far viewer using the cool route and prepare for a pirate party at the Darkwater Cove. Rhino shows up on the boat, so that's a good sign. But then as soon as we dock on the pier, we watch him fall through it. I'm sure it's nothing. Oh, that was not nothing. It seems Gurglefin doesn't approve of our time-hopping shenanigans and has sentenced us to lockpick purgatory as punishment. No worries, the puzzle is wall, so we could probably just run up there, right? But nope, it turns out these are out of bounds, so it forces us out of our run instead. Well, no matter, maybe the multiplayer distance laser thing counts as a wall. Nope, it doesn't stop our run, but we can't ascend either. This is not looking good. Maybe skipping the cutscene? Nope, that just drops us in from above. Skipping the cutscene and then joining with player 2? Well, that got us out of lockpick purgatory, but now we're stuck on the ocean. Player 1 has also randomly vanished, despite their Rhino still being on the portal. By editing me here again, I was messing around with this again later, and it somehow led to the game letting me play with no Skylanders. And this was permanent, I could bring it anywhere. So if you're wondering how I made that April Fool's video, that was actually just an accidental side effect of this playthrough. But that's getting a bit sidetracked, so back to Rhino. What if we wait to be dropped off on the dock, and then skip, join with the other player, and immediately leave with the first? Surprisingly, that actually worked. Warden Gurglefin was not happy about our escape and proceeded to crash Dolphin entirely. No wee crash sound, just gone, closed. I did the same thing immediately after, and he gave up and allowed me to continue. After some more running around and over things, we encounter the founder of the purgatory we just escaped from. Thankfully, we can just ignore him and go around, but the camera is really insistent on focusing on the lock. Thanks to the camera, we learn that these wooden planks are called squid-faced brutes, and that this shack is called a water spellpunk. And then the camera gets tired and decides to rest on this hill. In case you need a reminder of how incredibly fragile Rhino is, there you go. We're only about a quarter of the way through the game, and we're already nearly getting killed in one hit. Skipping one of these gates stops all the enemies from spawning in the temple, so we're able to waltz right up to the twin spouts and snatch them without any resistance. I then completely forgot I was playing as Rhino and did this section normally. Finally, we steal the pirate frigate and sail off to find the water source at Leviathan Lagoon. Since we're so fast, we're able to catch up to the Habaneros and grab the statues out of their hands, which makes them taunt us with nothing. We can grab the keys as well, but they can just grab them back, which slightly messes up the key animations. Since you're supposed to get the 4 statues and reach the end in a set order, I assumed that you could skip them and trigger the end immediately. Turns out you can't. I then watched this one hold some air for a while, collected some other air, and headed to the shrine for the first chaos battle. Zap was as easy as ever, although some of the electricity dodges were questionable. He went down, and I died during the first Doomshark phase because I tried to turn around for no reason. Like, seriously, rewatching this, why did I do that? After restarting the battle and returning to where we were, we clear the Doomsharks and it's skill grunt time! Yeah, so remember how some of those zap dodges were questionable? Well, it turns out that Rhino being at scale 0 means that most projectiles are completely unable to hit him. Epic! Now we're free to awkwardly smack all the projectile users with no risk of death. More Doomsharks come and go, and Slam Bam's here. His melee attacks can actually hit us, automatically making him the most difficult water minion. He's still not too much of a threat, as we can simply run away when he's about to start swinging. He goes down and immediately comes back, along with the 2 harmless noisemakers. After sending him back to Davy Jones's locker, all we need are some really bad attempts at dodging sharks to take down the other 2 and claim the second elemental source. Once we return from the lagoon, we're told to
investigate the beach.
We pass Quigley on the way, so of course we take the opportunity to pause to beat him up. After finding Clamtron 4000 and giving him some oil, he tells us to get clams to make pearls as part of a get-rich-quick scheme, but he somehow ends up making bombs instead. Makes sense to me. Conveniently, we need to use the bomb to open the sealed cave, so we'll do just that. Huh, weird, it didn't work. Well, let's just try again. Strange, still nothing. What about this one? Oh, that's the one I had to blow up. Terrible game design. I can't believe they tell you to blow up the cave when there are 3 perfectly accessible caves right there. Anyways, time to stare at a bridge. After sufficient staring, we teleport to the Crystal Eye Castle. Since Diggs is unable to get through this doorway, the cutscene of him getting launched away can never start, and so this timid Klops achieves immortality. These stones are called Crunchers. Weird name for stones in my opinion.
To get up there, you'll need to destroy the 2 seeing towers in order to open the big gate.
Nah, I don't really feel like it. Unfortunately, it seems the Crystal Eye has an invisible ceiling, so we're forced to run in circles until all the enemies are defeated. After collecting it and returning to the ruins, Rhino gets a bit too excited over the Earth element and decides to cosplay as the ground. Rhino number 2 gets summoned to bail us out, and we head off to Stone Town. Great start. In case you didn't notice, something unusual just happened. There were 2 doors over there. Also, everything despawned, but that's not really that noteworthy. Thanks to both players spawning underground, most objects get unloaded due to being too far away. The camera does continue along with the cutscene like usual, but due to a lack of stone golem, it can't get past this scene. Just like Shattered Island, attempting to skip this at any time will freeze the game. So it seems we have another tiny problem. We need to find a way to avoid everything here getting claimed by the void. We can't take Rhino off and replace him during the cutscene, as the game forces us to put the same one back on. I tried removing Player 1's Rhino during the loading screen and placing him back in after the chapter loaded, which lets us temporarily see him, but he still just falls through the floor, so that doesn't really help. But then, I found something truly groundbreaking. Rhino can use his primary during the magic moment. Okay, that didn't help at all, but I didn't lie, he did break the ground. Anyways, the solution was actually quite simple. Turns out removing Player 2's Rhino during the loading screen and then placing them back in does work. And then the cutscene can play out as normal. The existence of multiplayer continues to single-handedly keep this run alive. While sprinting through the beginning area is no big deal, the Squiddler section is actually a decent threat, as their explosives deal relatively high damage for our health, and we're forced to slow down for the turtle puzzle since we can't walk on water. After getting quadruple comboed, we play a bit more carefully in order to repair the turtle bridge and run across. Man, that was close. I sure hope the camera doesn't do anything weird. The game shows us this strange-looking optional collectible, which we ignore, and after grabbing this Habanero's key just because it looks funny, we enter the final section of the chapter. By getting past this wall without breaking it, the game lets us keep the better version of the music, which is nice. And after running up a few more walls, it's time to fight the Stone Golem. The first 2 phases are pretty easy, but the last phase might be a bit tricky with a limited space, so we just leave to find a better spot. Sadly, we can only go about this far before the camera snaps back to the golem, but the music does switch back to the regular theme while we're out here, interestingly enough. Once we return, we awkwardly smack the golem a few more times until it dies. Then we leave again, because it's funny. The camera still gets snapped back though, so we reluctantly head back to the Earth source and bring it back to the core. Harbo is born and performs a magic trick, allowing us to ascend to the treetop terrace. Surely, now that we're in our own element, things should be pretty easy, right? Unfortunately, it seems that the Drow who live here have other ideas. While there are still the usual things we can run over, this is essentially the most Rhino-proof chapter so far. To start, we have the spawn loop. At this point, you already know how we get around this. Immediately after, though, we encounter this pulley that we're supposed to activate to lift this log. Surprisingly, no matter how much I tried, Rhino refused to run over it. Somehow literal air is no problem, but a chopped down tree is where he meets his match. Reluctantly, we activate the pulley and continue onwards. The next few blockades are no big deal, as they go back to being skippable, but then we come to this other tree stump. Just like the first one, Rhino completely fails to run over it. Nah, just kidding, this one was easy. The actual problem is that the teleporter doesn't spawn, and we can't get back out. We're stuck for eternity with this Blade Witch laughing at our self-inflicted prison, and we have no choice but to restart the chapter from here. After getting back to where we were, we have a peaceful chat with the Drow, and can then continue. Inside the tree, this log is considered out of bounds for some reason, so we're forced to go around. But once again, I could not figure out how to get Rhino to run up this wall, so we have to shamefully use the intended mechanics. The next section of the level is fairly straightforward, so we can continue rampaging through everything until we reach this moving platform. There's not even a chance of Rhino avoiding this, since there being no floor under it means it's out of bounds. During the next fight, this switch killed a corn hornet, which I didn't know could happen, so that's cool. I then once again forgot I was playing as Rhino, so I started doing the puzzle before remembering that puzzles are for nerds, and Rhino is not a nerd. After some more running, we can ignore the final fight and watch the enemies repeatedly heal in the background as Arbo rambles about seeds. This part sucks, and Rhino does not make it any less painful. After approximately 5 years of collecting apples, we can head off to the Falling Forest. Luckily, the trolls in this forest are not nearly as good as the Drow at rhino-proofing the area. The chainsaws can effectively be completely ignored, as well as all the gates. After ignoring practically the entire chapter, it's time to accidentally get stuck in the corner and cause the spawn loop again, because apparently that can happen. After getting out of that, it's time for Chaos Encounter 2. As with previous projectile enemies, Zook can't hit us because we're too small. Looking back at the footage here, I have no clue what I was trying to do here during the first magic phase, but we're able to destroy all the snails and move on to Stealth Elf. She's already really easy to avoid, so she's no problem either. For the second magic phase, we can easily fit in between the bubbles thanks to the small hitbox. For Stump Smash, I was a bit more cautious, as I wasn't sure if his acorns would be able to hit us or not. Luckily, we didn't have to find out, and he went down just like the others. I did get hit twice during the final magic phase, but it wasn't a big deal thanks to the really huge stockpile of food you get during this fight. During the triple minion encounter, we learn that Stump Smash can hit Rhino, and we kill Stealth Elf by summoning a deadly pillar of light. After returning the life source back to the core, General Robot conveniently chooses this exact moment to wake up and ask for our help. We've been playing as a cannon for long enough, so now it's time to launch that cannon out of another cannon. In an ironic turn of events though, Rhino actually appears here as his normal self for the first time in the entire game. After sailing through the skies, we wind up in the Troll Warehouse. Sadly, as much as I'd love to mess around there, I couldn't find a way to walk around in the starting area. After receiving the mission briefing from Snuckles, we can ignore the path forward and go literally everywhere else. Aside from hitting this button, we can't really sequence break the chapter at all, so we grab Snuckles through the door and fall through the troll's cleverly concealed quicksand, and watch all the objects vanish. Probably no big deal. Oh no, the trolls had a hidden portal to the lockpick purgatory this entire time? If we need to watch that cutscene to beat the level, this could be a big problem. After restarting the chapter, I started looking for ways to avoid triggering it. Since Rhino has the life element, I tried going through the elemental gate and reaching the other side of the minefield that way. This didn't work since these walls have more out-of-bounds zones which stop Rhino from running over. I then tried running along the edge of the minefield, which went about as well as you could probably imagine. After restarting again, I decided to skip the intro cutscene and... why is this happening? After not skipping the intro cutscene, I tried bringing Snuckles to the field from the other side, and that somehow actually worked. From there, we can then ignore all the big gear door things and grab all the pieces of the map. I almost got killed by a Trollverine trying to do this, and only survived because Rhino fell through the floor at the perfect time. Finally, after completing the map, we make it through the minefield first try! We make it through the minefield second try, and launch the golden gear back to the core. Nothing interesting happens at the ruins this time, so we leave right away to the Goo Factory, where we immediately fall through the world and despawn all the objects again. Luckily, unlike Stone Town, this cutscene does not softlock the game, and instead it loops infinitely. Thanks to that, there's a brief moment in between the cutscenes where player 2 can join and break us out of the loop. Since the only thing guarding the final section of the chapter is a measly wall, we can run over it as usual and raise all the flags. Turns out they actually thought about this, as simply raising the 3 flags does not immediately end the chapter. No big deal, that just means we have to ignore more walls to go grab the Mega Bombs, since the walls required for progression are immune to the regular ones. However, while Rhino's tiny hitbox has been a huge bonus in the past, here it's more of a hindrance, as it's really hard to collide with the Mega Bombs in order to push them. It took me about a minute to push one from the starting point to the first barrier. After doing so, and grabbing the next Mega Bomb, I realized that skipping the smaller barrier was actually a bit of a mistake. If I blew it up with the Mega Bomb, I'd have to go grab a third one with Rhino's tiny hitbox, which would be extremely annoying. But since I already blew up the bigger barrier, the bomb that's meant for the barbed wire has despawned. Luckily, it turns out that with good enough pathing, it is possible to bring the bomb from the very start of the chapter all the way to the barbed wire, so I was able to blow it up and continue heading down the path without needing to grab a third Mega Bomb. After another minute and 45 seconds of bomb pushing, I was finally able to blow up the final barrier. Since we'd already raised the 3 flags beforehand, Rizzo cuts off his own dialogue and the level ends. We meet our very large twin brother and blast off back to the ruins, and then to the battlefield. As much as I'd like to say that Battlefield was a worthy final challenge for the tech levels, it was actually a complete pushover compared to the other two. There were no spawn looping problems, everything could be either run over or around, and you can get to the end of the chapter really quickly. Only problem is that the final tank doesn't spawn until you blow up the mega bomb barriers. As you may remember from the previous chapter, Rizzo told us that these walls can't be destroyed by the regular bombs. And if we try, sure enough, it still holds true. Rizzo is a dirty liar. From there, all we have to do is talk to Rizzo, who is a little bit behind, and the troll super tank is spawned. To nobody's surprise, this boss fight is as easy as ever, and we claim the tech source. General Robot proclaims his fear of spooky scary skeletons and skedaddles away. Upon investigating the beach, we finally encounter someone who's about as short as we are. We help him achieve the height we will never obtain, and as thanks, he brings us to the crawling catacombs. T-Bone proclaims his fear of spooky, scary spiders and skedaddles away. But unlike General Robot, we're able to follow him and the spider up the stairs, where we find out that the collision for the stairs simply just ends here. As for the actual level, there really isn't much to say. Practically everything is skippable, so we rush through and grab the skull mask in no time. After some more chatting, we head to the cadaver's crypt at full speed. I'm not skipping this, we're watching Rhino slowly walk to his position. Okay, now that he's finally done, just like the catacombs, this chapter was incredibly quick and easy. After running over a grand total of, let's count them, 1, 2, 3 walls, we find the skeleton key and it's already over. Editing me back again, I realized I forgot to check what's back behind this gate. For those curious, the stairs just end, the world just ends, and T-Bone's existence just ends. And now, back to your previously scheduled programming. After the store magically despawns, we descend downstairs to the creepy citadel. After once again checking for anything cool on the stairs, of which there was nothing, we do our typical Rhino things of running up and around gates, bridges, and thin air. Unfortunately though, I could not find a way to get around the front door to the citadel. Even when he's not trapping us in an inescapable cage of cogs, the Lockmaster still wants to cause us trouble. After taking care of that nuisance, we can continue onwards. We run past some spiders, dangerous knights, and box gremlins with very normal collision until we arrive at this room. As with the front door, I couldn't get past this gate, so we had to engage with intended gameplay yet again. Afterwards, we reached the light beam room, where there was another gate I couldn't figure out how to bypass. After completing the puzzle as any normal person would, we encounter Chaos for the 3rd time. Ghost Roaster's the first minion here, and he's fairly easy to avoid, although I did get hit twice due to underestimating his hitbox size and forgetting he could rush up to 6 times in a row. One epic laser light show later, Chop Chop arrives with his cheated double path weaponry, and thanks to being careless, his fancy sword was enough to take Rhino out in only 2 swings. No big deal, we can just restart from the boss fight. But it seems the game isn't going to let us get by that easily. Starting at the boss fight causes the spawn loop to happen once again. I really didn't feel like dealing with the spawn loop if I didn't have to, so I chose to just restart the chapter entirely. I'm actually quite glad that I did, as I found some really strange and interesting things while replaying the chapter. First off, I was able to emerge victorious over the Lockmaster Aim store. The rest of the chapter went about the same as the first attempt, but I found a really weird glitch with the light beam puzzle. I have no clue why, but the buttons started making the blocks glow yellow instead of changing their position. I thought I might be stuck since the puzzle wasn't working, but it turns out that with enough finagling, this is yet another wall that can be run over. And while replaying this chapter for a reason we'll come back to later, I found that this barrier can also be ignored, meaning this is yet another chapter with a 100% skippable wall raid. Hooray! Anyways, after getting back to the boss fight, I managed to beat Ghost Roaster damageless, but made up for it by doing horribly during the lasers, which was unfortunate as up next was the return of Chop Chop. I really didn't want to die here again, so I took my sweet time, only attacking once or twice before retreating. 3 whole minutes later, he was finally sent back to the grave, and it was time for Chaos to put on another rave. The final undead minion is Hex. Hex is a projectile user. I think you already know how this went. Chaos performs an encore, and it's time for all 3 at once. I would use my previous strategy of running mindlessly into the 3 of them, but killing one of them would spawn the lasers again. Even though Chop Chop and Ghost Roaster are annoying, I still think the lasers are a bigger threat than the minions themselves. So instead, I carefully chipped away at each of them until they were all only 1 hit away from death, and then rushed through them all before the lasers had a chance to do anything impactful. Once all three are back to resting in peace, or pieces in the case of Ghost Roaster's decapitated skull, we can claim the undead source and return to the core. We watch this wall magically respawn, re-blow it up, and witness Rhino's slow walking speed give this bird a heart attack.
Oh no!
Afterwards, we ride the conveniently located train down to the Mulligan Mine. Since this chapter already has the shortest speedrun goal, you'd probably assume it's pretty fast here too. Well, you'd be mostly right. With the power of Rhino, we can ignore all the rocks, crystals, and ultrons, and instead focus on heading directly to the 7 Mulligan miners. And also find out that some of these walls are way taller than they need to be. And also confuse this habanero. But after rescuing the 7 miners, it's time to reunite with Rhino's worst enemy, a pushable object. Just like the Mega Bombs, pushing this minecart took a significant amount of time compared to the rest of the level. Thankfully, after a rock-y start, I got pretty lucky and managed to push the cart down most of the track in one go. Of course, once I was already near the end, I noticed that running seems to increase the hitbox, which means that the Goo Factory struggles were likely a huge waste of time. Oh well. After pushing the cart to the end of the track, we add the Crucible of the Ages to the Core of Light and chugga chugga choo choo down to the Lava Lakes Railway. After Diggs asks us to switch the tracks, No way, it's the guy from Magic Kinder Skylanders! Anyways, after Diggs asks us to switch the tracks, we ignore him in favor of running down the tracks ourselves. To my surprise, the tracks actually have full collision. I was fully expecting to have to turn around and play the level semi-normally, but we can actually just walk down the entire thing. It is only the tracks that have collision, so we can't explore these extra chunks of land, but it is still a lot better than nothing. Eventually, after a brief intermission in the unloaded push block puzzle, we reach the end of the line with a very ordinary amount of fog. After running past some evil prison breaks and evil eruptors, we begin the semi-final chaos battle. First up is Flameslinger, and his charged arrows could be a decent threat thanks to the wave of fire they leave behind. Or they would be if the charging couldn't be interrupted by a light tap. Once his flame fizzles out, Chaos proceeds to use his easiest spell in the entire game and is flabbergasted when it doesn't work. Next up, the single figure Phoenix. Funnily enough, the situation is the exact opposite of Rhino's home build, where Rhino was visible and Sunburn was the one who couldn't be seen. He's not too hard to take down, as we can simply wait for him to attack and whack him a few times while he recovers. A few repeats of this pattern and the chicken is cooked, meaning it's time for a completely different elemental attack. Why does this fight have two completely different elemental attacks that are both a total downgrade compared to the difficulty spike of the undead lasers? No idea, but I'm not complaining since it means I don't have to replay the chapter dozens of times. Once everything simmers down, we challenge the final minion, Eruptor. And just like with Sunburn, it's really easy to take him out by baiting his attacks and retaliating when he laughs at us. Once he gets cooled off, we must yet again face all three of the minions. After more running and a close call with Eruptor's lava, all three are extinguished and we can claim the fire source. Returning to the ruins, we talk to the Weapon Master and cross the Great Chain to the Quicksilver Vault and everything's already despawned. Unlike the previous chapters where this happened though, this cutscene can actually finish as normal. So once it finishes, we find ourselves trapped in the spawn loop with Lockpick Purgatory threatening us in the distance. Once we get out, the game tries to keep controlling us in order to walk to the cutscene's usual endpoint. Interestingly though, we also have control here, so we can ignore the game's wishes and run in the complete opposite direction. If we do let it bring us to the intended location, Weapon Master's tour guide speech begins as normal. We still have control though, so we can go on our merry way. From here, you already know the drill. Battle gates? Ignored. Easily destructible rock walls? Ignored. Locked gates with strange looking optional collectibles? Ignored. Unfortunately, the game doesn't let us just waltz up and grab the Quicksilver, and after stupidly walking into the same defender 3 times, I had to restart the chapter. While getting back to where we were, I decided to grab the optional collectible and use it on the last door to avoid what happened the previous attempt. Afterwards, we head over to the random floating anvils to fulfill our light beam puzzle quota. I once again forgot that I was playing as a character who could skip things for the first puzzle, but I did remember to skip the second, and so I was able to successfully unlock the vial with only 2 energy beams. After accidentally skipping the trigger for the ending cutscene and getting thoroughly confused, we can grab the Quicksilver and complete the chapter. Editing me back again, I feel like mentioning that if you decide to skip Weapon Master's tour guide speech, the game will keep trying to make you walk towards it every time you're in a cutscene. And you also won't be able to beat the level like this. The end cutscene will just stop. If you do return to the speech afterwards, it'll immediately replace itself with the ending dialogue and the chapter will be completed. Anyways, now that we have the Quicksilver, we can pour it into the Core of Light and cross the chain a second time to the Archean Armory. Just like the vault, objects are unloaded during the beginning cutscene and we're stuck on the chain. Unlike the previous chapter though, an invisible wall spawns after the cutscene ends, which traps us on the wrong side. I rammed my head into the wall for a few minutes, but it did not budge, so I decided to just restart the chapter with player 2 in-game. Somehow, that let player 1 spawn normally and get past the invisible wall. Player 2, on the other hand, did not spawn normally. We decide to conserve power and not restore the Arcane City, but the enemies continue to appear as usual. Due to failing to get past this door, we end up turning back to activate the power anyway. A few waves of robots later, we reach the giant robot and hop in to take it for a joyride. Oh, hey, Rhino's visible again! Other than that, this is as painfully boring as usual. Upon our arrival at the final area, we encounter a group of defenders and proceed to die horribly. Okay, I know the rules say we have to restart the chapter, but I really don't feel like replaying the 4-minute long autoscroller twice in a row. So in this one case, we're going to complete the chapter from where we are, and then replay it without deaths afterwards. Since we're replaying this chapter anyway, I decided to save time on this attempt by running over the doors and deactivating the switches without grabbing the keycard. Unfortunately, by doing this, it seems I've fallen for the Archean's ultimate Rhino trap. Not only is the switch missing, but this room also has a ceiling, which means we can't run back over it to get out the way we got in. Luckily, as we all know, Archeans are not good at remembering stuff below them, and Rhino's small hitbox allows him to clip through the ground and end up completely out of bounds. From there, we're able to grab the keycard and then use this pillar to get back inbounds. After inserting the keycard and deactivating the 3 switches, we can retrieve the final piece of the Core of Light. But then we need to march right back into the armory for the Deathless completion. I did manage to reach the giant robot without restoring the power this time, but strangely, the trigger to activate it isn't here while the power is out, even though we can't normally ever get here without activating the power first. Once we do restore the power and suffer through this painfully boring section once more, we're back to where we died. This time, I was a bit more careful dispatching the defenders, and we grab the keycard, insert the card into the console, activate the switches, and complete the chapter fair and square. Now that the core's completed, the darkness is vanquished, the skies return to normal, and we prepare for the grand finale.
Are you ready to take on the evil chaos and rid Skylands of him once and for all?
Nah, maybe later.
Okay, I understand. Very wise.
Wait, no. Hugo, please, I didn't mean it. Please don't send me back to Lockpit Purgatory. So anyways, we say yes to ride this weird bubble thing to the Lair of Chaos, where we spawn underground again. After getting out of that, we take out the flame imps and use the teleporter to end up underground again. After getting out of that again, we hold down the secondary attack button to completely skip everything else in the level. And now, it all comes down to this. The ultimate battle between a screaming little bald man and a floating cannon who's broken through time and space to get here. To start, Chaos uses his ultimate secret weapon, a slowly moving and heavily telegraphed chair. This is dodged extremely easily, and we begin slowly smacking his health down. He does summon Slam Bam in an attempt to slow us down, but we can just go under the chair and use it as a shield. After dealing some damage, Chaos summons his pet cat, who honestly looks really cool with the messed up lighting. The Hydra starts by using a fire spell, which we dodge easily, a life spell, which we also dodge easily, and an undead spell, where we fail horribly and die. Thankfully, restarting here does not place us back underground. Upon returning to where we were, we successfully dodge fire, water, and life spells and reach the triple minion sections. The first wave consists of Stump Smash, Slam Bam, and Eruptor, with the Water Hydra spell providing support. This is fairly easy, as despite being brawlers, Slam Bam's the only one to have any melee attacks. We can continue to smack the 3 of them in between their attacks while healing off the Doom Sharks when they pass by. After 2 out of 3 are defeated, Chaos brutally murders them, and we move on to the speedy guys, Zap, Stealth Elf, and Ghost Roaster, with the Life Hydra for backup. After running directly into Ghost Roaster and making 2 really dumb mistakes dodging the life bullets, we die a second time. If we're not being extremely reckless though, this section isn't too bad. With some more careful maneuvering around the life bubbles, the 3 speedsters go down, and we proceed to the hardest phase of the minion gauntlet. Not only does this phase have the most difficult Hydra head, Undead, it also has the most annoying minions in the entire fight. And Zook. Chop Chop and Sunburn are both very dangerous if you let them stay up close, so my main strategy for this segment was to run in giant circles, dashing into them whenever possible and slowly whittling down their health that way. This did mean I had to deal with the undead spells more, but by staying calm and careful, avoiding them was not too bad. After 2 waves of undead lasers, Zook went down, which allowed me to finally reach level 10. Funnily enough, that level up also killed Chop Chop, so now I only had to deal with Sunburn. Without Chop Chop constantly getting in the way, I was able to take him out pretty quickly, and proceeded to the next phase. They are all projectile users. After they all die, we reach the final phase. No more holding back. Chaos heals to full health, and we only need to focus on dodging the Hydra's spells. And it turns out, even with the entire game's worth of practice, I am still not very good at controlling Rhino's movement in situations like this. I died many times from here on out, some attempts making it a bit further than others. Unfortunately, I can't show you all of them, since I deleted most of them due to storage space concerns, but I did have this one really weird attempt. During the undead Hydra phase, I randomly got healed for 1 health by nothing, and then the water had attacked. I have no idea why that happened. Eventually, I was getting kind of tired of fighting Chaos over and over again. Sure, we were slowly making progress, but it was taking 20 minutes to get back to the final phase, only to die again and again and again. Granted, that was mostly because I refused to skip the cutscenes, but that's not important. If we could find a way to increase our damage output, it would be a lot less painful getting back to the final phase and would help get closer to finally winning. And that's when it hit me. Through this entire playthrough, I've been using either the dash attack to slap the enemies around up close, or the ground slam to attack ranged enemies. But if we could combine both of those and use the ground punch while dashing, that extra 10 damage per hit could potentially be the difference we need to win. And after some testing, it turns out that the punch attack can indeed be used while charging. Well, that's nice to know. Once this water attack is over with, I'll just... Oh. So, apparently, by mashing the primary and the secondary at the same time, that happens. Needless to say, this is quite an effective attack. After one last really stupid death, this new technique makes Chaos go straight from being a challenge to a complete pushover. The first phase is over before the minion even gets a chance to attack, they all get eradicated during the triple minion section, and after dodging a few more Hydra attacks, Chaos and the challenge are defeated. I can't believe it, we actually did it. After conquering all the softlocks, scuffles, spawn loops, and explosives, I am pleased to say it is indeed possible to beat Skylanders Spyro's Adventure with only Rhino. Now, with our victory under our belt, we can finally purchase some upgrades from Persephone, such as your upgrade 0, 1, 2, and 3, and as for the upgrade pass, we've got to go with left path. And finally, we buy your upgrade 4 to end up with exactly 1 coin. Now, with our newfound powers, that don't actually do anything, we can venture back to Creepy Citadel to gain the satisfaction of absolutely slaughtering Chop Chop. And hey, speaking of venturing, the adventure packs exist. Yes, my transitions are excellent, I know. Since we've already beaten the main game, we might as well check to see what shenanigans we can get up to in the 4 bonus chapters as well. I was considering playing them following the in-game order, but I decided to play them in order of my least favorite to favorite instead. For that reason, we'll start by calling Flavius and flying off to Dragon's Peak. Upon arriving, we meet Blue Earless Trigger Happy and ignore the nearby Chompy Pods to climb up the side of this platform. Unfortunately, the Archean Hamma called in sick today. The game cannot handle this and freezes yet again. By rewinding time and killing the Chompy Pods, the Hamma is cured from his sickness and can clock into his shift. After exchanging some friendly greetings, we ignore the helpless old man and call Flavius for a pointless flying section.
This never gets old!
Yes, Flavius, it really does. The rest of this level is fairly straightforward. Land on island, ignore a gate, boring minigame, decimate some bugs, another boring minigame, ignore more gates, yet another boring minigame, get jump scared by an Archean, and finally arrive at the last island. Sadly, while I was able to ride the wall up to the hatbox, I wasn't able to ascend the remaining distance to the throne room. But of course, I somehow instead managed to land in the perfect spot to end up in another spawn loop. Thanks, game. Once we get out of that and defeat all the minions, we can take the normal path upwards to the throne room. And then hang out with Vathek because he's cool like that. After staring at this boom fiend for a few seconds, Vathek gets turned into a statue and the first of the 4 adventure packs is complete. Next up, we're sailing to the Pirate Seas. Arg, matey. Since we can run over everything, Dreadbeard is our only target and everything else can be safely ignored. One extremely close game of pirate cards later, Dreadbeard kidnaps the last uncaptured civilian in the town. Luckily though, these two somehow managed to escape while we were schooling Dreadbeard at cards, so we go with the shipmaster to raid the pirates' home base. Nothing much to say about this minigame here, so here's a little fun fact about the level. Did you know that in the Wii and Wii U versions of Spyro's Adventure, as well as all versions of Giants, there's always a barely visible gray blob in the top left corner of the screen during the chapter? That's because there's actually a random Mabu standing on the UI here. No clue why he's there, but now you know he exists, and you will hopefully never unsee him. You're welcome. With the pirate defenses destroyed, we can decimate Dreadbeard's card game a second time and beat the second adventure pack. Next, we stare at a static model as it slowly digs itself underground and somehow end up in the Dark Lake Crypt. Patterson starts off by giving us his painfully long and unskippable crash course on world switching. To show him our annoyance, we ignore the world switcher and bypass the gate to the crypt just because we can.
You're not a ghost, but here you are in the ghost world. Neat trick.
For being a giant eyeball, Oculus is ironically too blind to see what world he's in. And so are these enemies, as these cheaters are still active even though we never entered the ghost world. Anywho, after ignoring more guys, it's time for Tree. Also, Oculus has learned mitosis. 2 of him is bad enough, but we'd be in real trouble if there was a third one. Upon starting the boss fight, we activate the world switcher for the first time in the entire chapter so that we can shoot Oculus with conveniently placed cannons. And then we leave because we can. Everything back here is pretty normal, aside from this chunk of bridge being missing and discovering that Patterson was a figment of our imagination the entire time. We do kinda need to finish the chapter though, so we return to Oculus to do the same cannon thing 2 more times and take him down for good. Gallant tells us that we should go back to the bakery, so we do just that again. Unfortunately, Patterson is still dead. By talking to Gallant, Patterson magically reappears and we complete the chapter. Back at the ruins, we explore this really weird collision box before watching this funky rocket ship blast off and travel to the Empire of Ice. Spoiler alert, beating this level took me about as long as the other 3 adventure packs combined. This level's progression is a lot stricter, so it's more Rhino-proof than all the other chapters. First off, I attempted to run over this ledge, but somehow ended up getting soft-locked in the first 10 seconds of the level. Great start. After a quick refresh, we managed to bypass the trigger for the Frozen Fiend's intro, which makes them invincible. We can then lure them away and trigger the cutscene to make it play wherever they ended up. Immediately afterwards, we find out that Rhino's dash interacts quite strangely with the ice. While on the ice, the dash will move at the speed of his normal walk while you're holding the control stick, and he'll only run at his usual speed if you don't touch the control stick at all. This took a bit of getting used to, but it was honestly really helpful overall, as it made it super easy to get through the mazes later. Editing update, this is also how he works in the early build of Giants. I didn't know that earlier because I'd never used him in Glacier Gully until recording for the Sunburn footage. We meet Santa Claus and attempt to run up the wall to skip straight to the catapult. Weirdly, even though we can run up the wall, the game refuses to let us over and we get teleported back down. Instead, we have to take the long way around, running over this key gate and grabbing the 4 catapult parts behind the gate, in the battlefield, in front of the teleporter, and in the maze. Even with all 4 catapult parts though, Haldor did not show up by the catapult, so we couldn't proceed. While trying to get back to the other side of this gate to progress the level normally, I somehow got stuck inside the wall and couldn't figure out how to escape. I tried dashing into it, respawning with the stats menu, and bringing in player 2, but nothing seemed to work. It turns out I was heavily overthinking it and you could just run up the inside of this rock. Noodles here gets a bit confused as a result and will never stop running into the wall. Grabbing the key now causes Haldor to tell us about it as usual, but then as soon as that cutscene ends, it immediately starts the cutscene for grabbing the first catapult piece. Unfortunately, once he's done talking, the remaining cutscenes don't play and he doesn't react to us having them all. We can't collect the rest of them since, we already have them, so we're forced to restart again. This time, after we get the first catapult piece, we accidentally kill Noodles with a snowball and grab the key before getting the other 3 pieces. Once all the cutscenes are over with, we head over to the battlefield to find the second piece and discover that we have 1 out of 4, which is probably not a good thing. After going through the maze again and getting the last 2, we return to Haldor, only for him to tell us we still need to get the one in the battlefield. But since we already have it, we're soft-locked again. At least we can have fun with Santa Claus though. Quick restart later, we start the Frozen Fiend intro cutscene down here for the funny, and then get the key before the first catapult piece, as you would in a normal playthrough. Now, the amount remaining on the map and on the counter actually match up, so it should hopefully work this time. After grabbing the one in the battlefield and the one in front of the teleporter, Haldor interrupts us, telling us to come back. We grab the final part and return to Haldor as he says, and nothing happens. Apparently, you need to have exactly 3 parts on the counter for this next cutscene to start. For the 4th attempt at grabbing the parts, we once again grab the key, first piece, and battlefield piece, but then stop and return to Haldor after grabbing the piece outside of the maze. He tells us about the one we already got in the battlefield again, but we can then return to the maze instead and grab the final piece in there. The game is finally satisfied and allows us to build the catapult to battle the most intense character in the entire game. The wall. Aside from the key still floating above us, this fight is the same as ever. Once we destroy the wall, the inferior season is restored, and we have officially beaten the 4 adventure packs with Rhino. But we're not done yet. Now that we know that all 26 chapters can be beaten, it's time to ask the ultimate question. Is it possible to 100% complete Skylanders Spyro's adventure with only Rhino? No. So instead of that, let's talk about heroic challenges. First off, this bomb's for you, Where Art Thou paintings, Fight Teleport Fight, the 3 teleporters, Arachnid Antechamber, Isle of the Automatons, and Jailbreak are all impossible because you fall through the world during the dialogue and end up in the spawn loop once the challenge actually starts. Since there's no multiplayer in heroic challenges, we have no way to get out of the loop this time. All of the other challenges are possible, but it's a good idea to avoid teleporters whenever you can. Most of these other challenges went about how you'd expect, so I'm going to try rapid fire the ones which were more interesting. In Dungeness Creeps, you can avoid grabbing any charms and fail the challenge that way if you want to. In Mining is the Key, you can immediately run over the wall next to the first gate and end up in the final area, clearing the challenge really quickly. The tornado at the end of Pod Gauntlet cannot be activated before defeating all the enemies to lower the gate. The same applies to the key gate in Time's a Wastin'. You can't win until you actually open the gate. Hobson's Choice can be beaten without taking any teleporters, but the troll tank won't actually spawn until you activate the teleporter that normally leads to it. You Break It, You Buy It is actually pretty interesting thanks to this short cutscene with Callie that plays the first time you destroy a painting. With a bit of exploration, we can go and visit her. The painting and vases next to her are actually fake, so they won't lower your time or lead to an instant failure. We can also go and visit Callie too, since she's attached to the UI in this challenge for some reason. I'm pretty sure she's actually more visible here than the Pirate Seas Mabu. In Lobs O Fun, we can kill the last pirate first. The cake will still spawn where he's supposed to be though. The book in Spellpunked causes a few various oddities. If we kill the Tekken Undead Punks first, we can grab the book and it counts as the 3rd Spellpunk. This does stop the Water and Magic Punks from spawning though, so this ends in a soft lock. If you skip one of the punks and kill exactly 7, then you can grab the book as your 8th punk and it will count as beating the challenge. On the other hand, if you grab the book before killing 7 punks, then the 7th punk will not complete the challenge and you're forced to go find the 8th to win. Flip the Script is pretty cool because I can finish the challenge before finishing this sentence. You can also hit the final button first to drop the night guys on the spikes for fun. You can catch up to the Habaneros in You've Stolen My Hearts and can bypass the really laggy final section by grabbing the heart directly. In Operation Sheep Freedom, you can destroy the barricades with the sheep themselves, which makes the particle freak out a bit. Finally, Rhino's dash attack can't break the smaller barrels in Chemical Cleanup for whatever reason, so you have to use the Ground Slam instead. And after all that, here's one last look at his stats with all of the possible heroic challenges completed. Well, thanks for watching. When I first tested this and saw the spawn loops, I was not expecting for it to be possible with just Rhino, but I'm really happy that it was. If you want to see the full, mostly unedited playthrough, I'll be uploading that about a week after this. Afterwards, I'm hoping to upload monthly videos about unused stuff in the series. There's still a lot of really interesting scrapped content to talk about, including text, areas, characters, and much more. Plus, I've still got like 7 early builds to record, which will probably be my top priority for now. Anyways, I can't think of a way to end this video, so I'll hopefully see you in about a month for Giants Build 2.